How are you guys? Welcome back to Wargaming China. Now today we're going to look at the L-3 35 or CV-35 of Italian manufacture in Chinese service. But we'll take a journey back to the origins of the CV-35s. Now, what you're looking at here are three beautiful pewter Vickers Card and Lloyd tankettes made for those lovely guys at Early War Miniatures. And these are purchased in order to field the Vickers Card and Lloyd tankettes that China purchased. But the Vickers Card and Lloyd tankette, which was produced between 1927 and 1935, came in a bewildering amount of options, shapes and forms. Sometimes there were one-man, two-man crew, and because this was the 30s and things were tight, you could get as many modifications as you could just done by Vickers Card and Lloyd, and they'd do them. And this is why, of the many countries that bought the CVL, and you know, CVLs were purchased, Vickers Card and Lloyd carriers, tankettes were purchased by Russia, Bolivia, where they served in the Grand Chaco War, Poland, France, Italy. As China bought 12, and the ones China bought were very similar to this, the type of Japanese Navy bought, except that they didn't have the bins at the back, the ammo bins at the back. So as you can see, this is not quite right for China, because it should have a top on it and no bins. China had bought 24 of these by 1929 at a cost of just over £26,000. Now I will go into more detail about China's Vickers Card and Lloyd tankettes when they get the right ones, or modify those ones enough for them to be accurate. So as I said, Italy was one of the buyers of the Vickers Card and Lloyd, and indeed the Vickers Card and Lloyd was a very influential design. 450 were sold, and they influenced many armoured vehicles that were to come, because for many countries the Vickers Card and Lloyd tankette offered an introduction into armoured warfare and possibilities of armoured warfare and what it would entail at not much expense. Vickers Card and Lloyd tractor with trailer retailed for about £1,150, which was a bargain vehicle. The French liked it and developed it into the UE, which I've talked about in Chinese service in a previous video, and indeed the Germans would upgrade it and play with the idea, and it was the basis for the Panzer I. Now, as I said, Italy had procured the Vickers Card and Lloyds in 1927, and she liked the design, and by 1929 she was making her own version called the CV-29. Now, although that was armed with one machine gun, with armour only up to 10mm thick, the Italians soon thought, well, we need something better. So they went on to produce the CV-33 with two machine guns, and a little bit of a thicker armour protection, up to 13 mils in some places. Now, Italy started making the CV-33 in 1933, and by 1935 she had progressed the design to the CV-35. Now, the difference between the CV-33 and 35 is that the CV-33 is a riveted construction, and the CV-35 is a bolted construction, and that is the only difference. So Italy went on to produce the CV-30, developed the CV-33 into the CV-35, and the most famous version of the CV-33 would be the flamethrower version, although the Italians did manage to mount a 47mm anti-tank gun on them, on the chassis. Now, Italy had a lot of success with exploring the CV-33s and 35s, and many countries bought them, and they served in combat for Italian forces in Spain and in Abyssinia. Now, as I said, the Italian CV-33s were a major export success. Even Afghanistan bought some, and China bought some. Now, China in August 1935 ordered 100 CV-35s from Italy. Now, the order had been delivered via Hong Kong by February 1937, February 38, and some of the tanks were brand new, fresh from the factory, but others, it appears that others were a bit more banged up and clapped out because they had come from service in Abyssinia. Now, although China bought 100 of these tanks, as I said, the majority, 20 were sent to Nanchang, and the majority were sent to Changsha initially. Now, the CV-35 in Chinese hands, if you're a wargamer, it is the right vehicle to get, because it's, as a tank, it sees the most combat. It sees combat out of all the armoured vehicles the Chinese had. The CV-35 or the Leggero 33, as a 35 as the Italians would term it, saw the most combat for the Chinese. Lanfang, Burma, and a couple of other examples. Now, with the majority of the CV-35s were spread out among the various tank regiments of the army, but the formation that's received the most of the CV-35s was the Army's 5th Tank Regiment. Now, if I was a beginner wargamer, if I was beginning to start my armies for China, I would probably start with CV-35s. Now, as for paint jobs, you see, I'm not going to show you a paint job, and don't look at mine because I'm not happy with my paint jobs. What I think the CV-35 should be is a slightly redder sandy colour than that, a slightly redder colour than that, with green, I would say, cheetah spots in this colour. That's how they should be painted. I'll get around to painting them properly one day, but paint jobs aren't my strong suit, because I don't really like painting. Now, in China, they would serve on until the end of the war, and indeed some would be captured by the Japanese and sent back to Japan for display. And the CV-33, 35 does not. I have read or seen, I think seen war games where they have the CV-35 in Nanjing. No, it doesn't appear there. As I said, it's mainly in Burma along the. Let me remember if the name of the road, on the Yanangyuan Road and the Yunnan Highway. These were very active, very active. Hope you enjoyed that. Today I'm just taking it easy. We've had a lot of rain, so I haven't been able to make any videos. Okay, if you enjoyed that, you should press like. If you haven't before, you should press subscribe, because I know it's a very humble production, but I am the only one who I believe is wargaming China in 20 mil and actually doing a channel about it, so that you can feel the armies yourself. Now, as far as these vehicles are concerned, these are the old Cromwell models, LV-35s, and a marking on each side, and then one at the front there on the right hand side of the front plate is where you would put your markings. Great little tank. I hope you enjoyed that video. See you later.